My husband didn't ask me. He assigned me like I was a folding chair he could drag out when his family needed extra seating. We were driving home from his parents' house, dashboard lights washing his jaw in a calm blue glow, and he said it like he was reading a grocery list. "You're shooting my sister's wedding," he said. "For free. It's family." I laughed once, small, automatic, because my brain couldn't accept what my ears had just heard. "What?" I asked, staring through the windshield. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles looked pale. "You mean, you already told her I'd do it?" He didn't even flinch. "Yeah," he said. "She's excited. It's the vineyard. It'll look amazing. You always say you want to be close to family." Close. That word tasted like metal. "I'm a professional photographer," I reminded him. Voice low, controlled. The kind of controlled you use when you're holding a glass that's already cracked. "My wedding rate starts at $4,000. You know that." He exhaled like I was being dramatic. "Don't make this a thing," he said. "My dad's paying for everything. We're saving money where we can." Saving money. On my spine. On my time. On the hours I spend hunched over a screen until my eyes feel sanded raw. I glanced at him. He was scrolling on his phone, calm as a man ordering dessert. "So I'm not your wife right now," I said softly. "I'm a coupon." His head snapped up. "That's not fair." "What's not fair," I said, heartbeat pressing against my ribs, "is you volunteering me like I'm part of the family buffet." He looked me dead in the eye and delivered the ultimatum like a closing argument. "If you love me," he said, "you'll do this. And if you don't bother coming home tonight." Something in me went quiet. Not rage. Not tears. Just clarity. I kept my eyes on the road and let the silence stretch until it hurt. Then I nodded once. "Fine," I said. "No problem." He relaxed immediately, smug, relieved, like he'd just won something. And in that moment, I made a decision so cold it almost felt peaceful. I would show up to that wedding. I would do exactly what they wanted. I would look like the perfect photographer. And I wouldn't take a single photo. I didn't become a photographer because it was cute. I became one because I needed something in my life that belonged to me. Something no one could talk over, borrow, or take credit for. Before the studio, before the insurance policies and the invoices and the cases of gear that cost more than my first car, I was just a girl who noticed things other people missed. The way someone's smile didn't reach their eyes. The way a room changed when a certain person walked in. The split second before a laugh turned sharp. A camera gave me proof of what my gut already knew. I built my business slowly. Late nights, cheap coffee, secondhand lenses I babied like they were glass. I shot anything that paid at first. Product photos for small shops. Headshots for people who wanted to look like they slept 8 hours. A few weddings for friends of friends where the brides cried and the grooms forgot their vows and the mothers tried to direct me like I was a remote control. It was exhausting, but it was mine. By the time I met my husband, I had already made a name for myself in a specific lane, high-end commercial work and select weddings, the kind with timelines that run like military operations, and couples who think the sun should be negotiable if it ruins their golden hour. He knew that. He liked that about me, at least at the beginning. We met at a friend's dinner, one of those casual city nights where everyone talks too loud and pretends they aren't checking their phones. I remember he sat across from me, sleeves rolled up, laughing at the right moments like he'd been trained. He asked what I did, and when I told him, his eyebrows lifted. "Photographer like weddings?" he asked. "Photographer like contracts," I said, smiling. "Invoices, liability insurance, editing until my eyes go numb." He leaned in, impressed. "That's actually hot." I should have heard the warning in that word, actually. Like he'd expected it to be fluff. Like he'd expected me to say I took pretty pictures for Instagram. But I was tired that night. Tired of being underestimated. And his attention felt easy. Dating him was easy at first, too. He was charming in that smooth social way. He knew how to make a waitress laugh. He knew how to fill silences. He listened, at least enough to mirror what you said back to you so it felt like intimacy. And he had this soft spot for family. He talked about them like they were a team. "My sister's the baby," he'd say, fondness in his voice. "She's the golden one. My parents would do anything for her." I thought he meant it as admiration. I didn't realize he meant it as a rulebook. The first time I met them, I tried. I really did. I brought a bottle of wine. I complimented the house. I laughed at the stories I'd clearly walked into halfway through, like a rerun everyone else already knew by heart. His mother smiled at me like she was evaluating fabric. His father spoke in statements, not conversations, like everything he said was meant to be agreed with. And his sister, his younger sister, floated through the night like the room was built for her. Pretty ringed hands, big laughter. That kind of confidence that comes from never being told no in a way that matters. They were polite, technically, but I felt it under the surface. I wasn't a person to them yet. I was an accessory to their son. A nice girl. A creative. Something useful, maybe. Still, my husband squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "You're doing great," like I was auditioning. When we got married, I thought it would shift something. I thought the word wife would earn me a little respect. Instead, it just changed my category. I went from guest to resource. Because in his family, boundaries weren't a normal thing you had. They were a thing you withheld. And withholding was treated like cruelty. So when his sister got engaged and his parents started smoothing the road in front of her with money and entitlement, and the wedding planning became an entire family project, my husband didn't see my career. He saw a solution, and he offered me up like a gift tag, not even to her, to his parents, to the image of being the kind of family who takes care of their own. The signs didn't arrive all at once. They slipped in quietly, small enough to dismiss, reasonable enough to excuse. It started with comments. "Can't you just tweak the lighting real quick?" my husband would say when his sister sent another late-night message. "She's stressed," he'd add, like stress was a currency that paid my bills. Then requests began to come through him instead of to me, like a game of telephone where my consent got thinner with every pass. "She wants the photos to feel editorial," he told me one night, scrolling through his phone while I edited a commercial shoot. "Editorial costs more," I said, eyes burning, cursor blinking, like it was waiting for permission to exist. He didn't look up. "It's just a style. Just a style. Just 12 hours on my feet. Just 40 pounds of glass digging into my shoulders. Just weeks of post-production no one planned to pay for." I started noticing how often I was volunteered in that family. I'd hear it in the tone. Light, expectant, already decided. "Oh, she can handle it. She's good at that. She won't mind." They said my name like it was a tool. At another dinner, his sister pulled her phone out and slid it across the table to me, screen glowing, with a Pinterest board that seemed to scroll forever. "I made this for you," she said brightly. "Mood lighting, editorial. I want that look you did for that magazine cover last month." I stared at the screen. 300 pins. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "I haven't agreed to shoot your wedding," I said carefully. Her smile twitched, just for a second. "Oh," she laughed. "I thought that was already decided." My husband squeezed my knee under the table, a warning squeeze, the kind meant to keep things smooth. "Babe," he said, "we talked about this." No, he talked about it. I looked around the table. His parents were watching, alert now, interested, like they'd tuned in for the real conversation. "I want to be a guest," I said. "I want to celebrate with my husband, not work." His father grunted. "You don't charge family." The word charge hit like an accusation. "What's tacky," I said, voice calm but tight, "is deciding my labor is free without asking me." The temperature dropped. You could feel it, the way you feel when a room collectively decides you've crossed a line. His sister's lower lip trembled on cue. "She doesn't want to do it," she said softly, eyes shining. "She hates me." I turned toward her. "I don't hate you. I hate being told what my work is worth." That's when my husband stood up. "Kitchen," he said. "Not to me, at me." Behind the closed door, the mask slipped. "You are embarrassing me," he hissed. "My parents do everything for us." "They bought us a microwave 3 years ago," I said flatly. "That's not the point," he snapped. "This is my sister. This is important." "So am I," said, hands shaking now. Fine tremors I tried to hide by pressing my palms against the counter. "If they want me as a photographer, they sign a contract and pay. Family discount is 20%. That's it." His eyes hardened. "If you don't do this," he said slowly, deliberately, "don't bother coming home tonight." The words hung there, heavy, absolute. I searched his face for something familiar. Love? Respect? Hesitation? I didn't find any. What I saw instead was calculation. He was weighing me against convenience. And I knew right then that this wasn't about a wedding. This was a test of how much of myself I was willing to give away to keep the peace. And when I finally spoke, my voice surprised even me. "Fine," I said, "I'll do it." His shoulders relaxed instantly. He smiled. He thought he'd won. He had no idea I'd already stopped playing the role he assigned me. For the next 3 months, I became the model photographer. I answered his sister's 2 a.m. texts about lighting. I nodded while his mother told me which wrinkles she wanted smoothed out in post-production. I let them treat me like hired help, without the hiring part. The morning of the wedding arrived crisp and bright. I put on my suit. I strapped on my dual camera harness. I packed my 2 main bodies, top-of-the-line full-frame machines. I grabbed my best lenses. I looked the part. Then I left my memory cards stacked neatly on my desk. I left every single battery plugged into the charger on the nightstand. At the venue, his sister was already snapping at a bridesmaid about the shade of blush on a sash. "You're here," she said when she saw me, relief and impatience mixed together. "Okay, get to work. I want candids while we're getting ready. Make me look skinny." "You got it," I said. I raised the camera. I framed the shot perfectly. And I didn't press a thing. Even if I had, the shutter wouldn't have fired. The camera was a dead brick of metal in my hands. For the next 10 hours, I performed the role of my life. I crouched in bushes. I climbed chairs. I directed people. Chin down, turn left, beautiful. I turned focus rings manually so it looked like I was working. During the ceremony, I walked backward down the aisle. I stood inches from the officiant. I captured the kiss, the tears, the exit. At the reception, they sat me at the vendor table with the DJ and the caterers. My husband laughed at the head table. He never once looked at me. I ate the buffet food. I drank the wine. I set the camera down and watched them celebrate. And I slept better that night than I had in months. The green lights on the battery charger glowing softly in the dark. Waiting. Unused. The morning after felt wrong before anything actually happened. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears and waits. I woke up early, my body still running on wedding adrenaline, even though I hadn't worked a single second. My husband was still asleep beside me, sprawled diagonally across the bed, mouth slightly open, the faint smell of cheap champagne clinging to him. I slipped out without waking him. The kitchen was dim, gray light leaking in through the window. I made coffee on autopilot, listening to the machine hum, grounding myself in small, ordinary sounds. When I sat down at the island, I could see straight into my office. The memory cards were still there, stacked neatly on my desk, untouched, exactly where I'd left them. At 9:30, my phone buzzed. "Just woke up married." "Where are the pics? Need to post." I took a sip of coffee. It tasted bitter and perfect. Another buzz. "Hello? Mom is asking too." I didn't reply. A few minutes later, my husband shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his temples. "Ugh," he groaned. "My sister's blowing up my phone. She wants previews." He poured himself coffee, still not looking at me. "Can you just send her like 5 good ones?" he said. "So she shuts up?" "I can't do that," I said calmly. He frowned. "Why? Is the internet down?" "No," I said. "The internet's fine." "Then just transfer them to your phone and text them. It takes 2 seconds." I looked at him. "I can't transfer files that don't exist." The cup froze halfway to his mouth. "What did you say?" I said, I repeated evenly, "I can't transfer files that don't exist." He laughed once, sharp and confused. "I don't get it. You were taking pictures all day. I saw you." "You saw me holding a camera," I corrected. "You didn't see me taking pictures." He stared at me now. I stood up and walked into my office. He followed, slower, like his brain was trying to catch up to his feet. I pointed to the nightstand. 4 batteries, fully charged. Then I pointed to the desk. A perfect stack of memory cards. "I didn't bring batteries," I said, "and I didn't bring cards." He blinked. Once. Twice. His face went blank like a screen freezing. "So you used spares," he said. "Or you bought new ones?" "No." His voice dropped. "What do you mean, no?" "The cameras were dead," I said. "Paperweights. I didn't take a single photo. Not one." Silence. Then his voice started to shake. "Is this a joke?" he asked. "Because it's not funny. Tell me this is a prank." "The prank," I said, leaning against the doorframe, "was you and your family thinking you could bully me into $5,000 of free labor." His eyes widened. "You told me to do it or not come home," I continued. "So I did it. I showed up. I played the role perfectly." His mouth opened, closed. "You," he whispered. "You ruined her wedding." "No," I said. "She had a wedding. She got married. She has memories." I paused. "She just doesn't have high-resolution proof to farm for social media." His face twisted. "You're a psychopath," he spat. And then he lunged. The coffee cup flew from his hand, smashing against the wall inches from my head. Ceramic exploded. Coffee splattered like blood. He slammed his fists into my chest over and over. "Fix it," he screamed. "Go back and fix it. Do something." I grabbed his wrists, heart hammering. "I can't fix it," I said. "The moment is gone." He tore free and ran to the bedroom, phone already at his ear. I heard him screaming to his mother. "She didn't take them. She didn't take any photos. She tricked us." I checked the clock. I knew I had about 20 minutes before his family descended. I went to the safe. Passport. Cash. Hard drives with my actual paying clients' work. I packed a bag. When I walked past him in the hallway, he was on the floor, shaking. "Where are you going?" he shouted. "You can't leave. You have to fix this." "I'm going to a hotel," I said, "and then I'm calling a lawyer." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. The door closed behind me with a soft, final click. And for the first time since I married him, my heartbeat slowed. Not because I was safe, but because I was finally free of pretending. I checked into a hotel downtown that smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and expensive indifference. The lobby was quiet, polite. No one asked questions. That night, I turned my phone off and slept like my body had been holding its breath for years, and finally remembered how to exhale. When I turned my phone back on 3 hours later, the screen lit up like a warning flare. Missed calls, unknown numbers, voicemails stacked so tightly they blurred together. Then the messages started loading. "You are evil. You're sick. You ruined my life. This is fraud. I hope you die." And then the one that made my stomach drop. "I'm emptying the joint account. You deserve nothing." I didn't hesitate. I opened my banking app. The transfer was already pending. $18,000, the full balance, flagged as processing. I called the bank's fraud line immediately. "My husband and I are separating," I said, voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "He is draining marital assets without authorization. I need the account frozen." They froze it pending investigation. Then I called a lawyer. His name was Dan. Dan was expensive. Dan was sharp. Dan did not waste words. After I explained everything, there was a pause on the line. Then he laughed. Not kindly, not cruelly, just professionally amused. "Let me confirm a few things," he said. "Did you sign a contract?" "No." "Did you accept payment? Cash, transfer, even gas money?" I ate dry chicken and drank 2 glasses of house wine. "Did you promise a specific deliverable?" I said no problem. Dan hummed. "Good news," he said. "There's no contract. No consideration means no obligation. They can't sue you for breach. They can't sue you for fraud because you didn't take money. Emotional distress? They can try. They'll lose." I closed my eyes. "And the marriage?" I asked. "That part's over," he said calmly. I figured. The next few days felt like a siege. My phone rang constantly. Numbers I didn't recognize. Distant relatives I'd met once at Christmas. People calling to tell me I was a disgrace. That I'd embarrassed the family. That I'd crossed a line. Then his sister went public. She posted a Facebook essay so long it needed a Seymour button. She accused me of sabotaging her wedding out of jealousy. She claimed I demanded $10,000. She said when they refused, I deleted the photos. A lie. She tagged my photography business page. Within an hour, the reviews came flooding in. Unprofessional. Ruined a bride's day. Do not trust this woman. 1 star. 1 star. 1 star. That's when I realized what this really was. They weren't angry about the wedding. They were angry I hadn't stayed small. So I responded the only way I know how. With receipts. I posted a public statement on my business page. I explained that I was never hired. That I was a guest. That my professional services were demanded for free after I declined. That guests are not obligated to provide professional labor. I included a screenshot of a text from his sister, sent months earlier. "I don't care if it's your job. It's family. Mom says you don't need to be paid." The internet loves a villain, but it loves proof more. The post spread. Local wedding groups picked it up. Bridezilla forums dissected it. The reviews were reported and removed as spam. And then the tone shifted. My husband, no, my ex, moved back in with his parents. He emailed me from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, truce. "If you just edit the photos, we know you have them. We can stop the divorce. My parents are willing to forgive you." I didn't reply, because there were no photos. There was only silence. 3 weeks passed. The lawsuit threat came next. A courier delivered a demand letter to my studio, $25,000 in alleged damages. Dan circled one word with a red pen. Consideration. "They're bluffing," he said. "But here's the fun part. Since they filed a claim, we get discovery." "Discovery?" I asked. "We get their wedding finances," he said, "to prove they targeted you specifically." We rejected the claims and requested full financial disclosure. They went quiet. That's when my ex escalated again. He called the police. 2 officers walked into my studio while I was editing a paid commercial shoot. "Ma'am," one said, bored already, "we have a report of theft." "Theft of what?" I asked. "Wedding photos and camera equipment belonging to your spouse." I calmly opened my filing cabinet. "Receipts, serial numbers, dates, all purchased before the marriage," I said. "Premarital assets, and there is no wedding album." The officers glanced at each other. "This is a civil matter," one said. "It's a divorce," I corrected. They left. That was a mistake, because filing a false police report doesn't look good in family court. Without my income cushioning the edges of his life, reality set in fast. He couldn't afford the mortgage. He asked for temporary support. The judge denied it, and then came the reshoot. They couldn't afford the vineyard again, so they booked a public park. They hired a student photographer. They paid $300. It rained. Not romantic rain. Mud. Mascara streaks. Public humiliation. The groom snapped. "I told you to pay her," he shouted, before throwing his jacket into a puddle and leaving. The photos went online. They were tragic, and suddenly the story wasn't about me anymore. It was about entitlement. And entitlement, once exposed, doesn't recover. I blocked the last burner number my ex used to text me. "You've ruined everything," I replied once. "I can't give you what doesn't exist." Then I blocked him. And the silence that followed? It wasn't empty. It was earned. After the noise faded, the calls, the posts, the threats, what came next was heavier, quieter. The kind of darkness that doesn't shout, but sits beside you and waits for you to notice it. I moved into a short-term Airbnb that smelled like lavender and other people's compromises. Neutral walls, furniture chosen to offend no one. At night, the city hummed outside the windows, distant and indifferent. During the day, I worked. I edited campaigns. I answered client emails. I smiled on Zoom calls. From the outside, I looked fine. Inside, I felt hollowed out. Not because I missed my husband. Because I missed the version of myself who thought love meant being chosen without conditions. I replayed moments I'd brushed past before. The way he'd flinched when I talked about raising my rates. The way his parents' approval mattered more to him than my boundaries. The way family had always been used like a weapon disguised as virtue. At night, the questions crept in. Did I go too far? Was there another way? Did I deserve the fallout? I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, heart ticking too loudly in my chest, wondering if I'd burned my entire life down just to prove a point. The loneliness was sharpest in the mornings. Waking up without another body in the room was supposed to feel like relief. Some days it did. Other days it felt like standing in the aftermath of a storm. Everything rearranged, nothing familiar, debris everywhere. My phone buzzed constantly with reminders of what I'd lost. Friends who didn't know which side to stand on. Acquaintances who went quiet. Mutuals who watched but didn't reach out. And then there were the messages that slipped through the cracks. Burner numbers, new emails, desperation disguised as anger. "You destroyed a family. You embarrassed us. You could have just taken the photos." That last one hurt the most. Because it reduced everything to a single action. Just take the photos, as if my dignity was an inconvenience. One afternoon, after a 12-hour edit session, I closed my laptop and realized my hands were shaking. Not anger, exhaustion. I walked into the bathroom and barely recognized the woman in the mirror. My eyes looked older. My shoulders slumped forward like they'd been carrying weight for too long. My mouth was set in a line I didn't remember choosing. I sat on the edge of the tub and let the quiet swallow me. This was the cost, I thought. Not the marriage. Not the money. Not even the reputation scare. The cost was grief. Grieving a future I'd planned with someone who'd never seen me as an equal partner, only as a resource to be managed. That night, I dreamed I was back at the wedding. Everyone was laughing. The music was loud. The lights were perfect. I raised the camera, pressed the shutter. Nothing happened. I woke up with my heart racing, breath shallow, sheets twisted around my legs like restraints. That's when the doubt hit hardest. What if this follows me forever? What if this is the story people remember? The fear wasn't loud. It was patient. It told me I was alone now, that I'd chosen pride over peace. That being right didn't mean being okay. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat, feeling the full weight of what it means to stand alone after choosing yourself. And for the first time since everything began, I wondered, not about the wedding, not about the fallout, but about who I would be after this. Because the old version of me, the one who compromised, smoothed edges, stayed quiet to keep the room comfortable, she was gone. And the woman replacing her, she hadn't fully arrived yet. I didn't know if she would be stronger. I only knew she would never again mistake silence for peace. The shift didn't come with a speech. It came with paperwork. A thin envelope slid across a polished desk in a quiet courthouse hallway, and with it, something inside me finally settled. Dan stood beside me, calm as ever, flipping through documents like this was just another Tuesday. "They overplayed their hand," he said. "Badly." I watched my ex across the room. He looked smaller somehow, less certain. The confidence he used to wear like armor had cracked, and underneath it was panic, raw, unpracticed. His parents sat stiffly behind him, their faces tight with restrained outrage, the kind that had nowhere left to land. Discovery had done its job. The financial records painted a picture they couldn't spin. A wedding budget bloated with appearances, corners cut everywhere that wouldn't show up on Instagram, and a very clear pattern of expecting my labor to be free, not discounted. Free. When his sister was called to testify, she tried to cry her way through it. She talked about family expectations, about miscommunication, about how she thought I wanted to do it. Dan let her finish. Then he slid the printed text messages across the table. The ones where she said payment didn't matter. The ones where she said her mother told her I didn't need to be paid. The ones where my consent never appeared. Only assumption. Her voice faltered. Her eyes darted toward her parents. The judge didn't interrupt. He just listened. And when it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't perform. I told the truth plainly. I explained my business. My rates. My contracts. The physical toll of wedding work. The ultimatum I'd been given. I was told, I said evenly, that if I didn't provide professional services for free, I shouldn't come home. The room went still. I didn't need to embellish. The silence did the work for me. That was the moment the power shifted. Not because I'd won, but because I was no longer defending myself. They were. The judge denied every remaining claim. No damages. No compensation. No sympathy. The case collapsed in on itself, heavy with its own entitlement. Outside the courthouse, my ex finally spoke. "You could have stopped this," he said, voice tight. "You didn't have to take it this far." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but distance. "I didn't take it anywhere," I said. "I stood still. You kept pushing." He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. That afternoon, I walked back into my studio and noticed something I hadn't before. The light. It poured in through the windows, clean and bright, hitting the exposed brick just right. My cameras sat on the table, batteries charged, memory cards formatted and ready. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. Not relieved. Aligned. I updated my website that night. New rates. Clear boundaries. A line that read, "Professional services are never provided without a contract." Clients responded almost immediately. Not with hesitation, with respect. A week later, a high-end brand booked me for a campaign without negotiating a single dollar. Another client told me she chose me because I seemed like someone who wouldn't be pushed around. I smiled at that, because it was true. The final divorce papers came through quietly. No drama, no appeals, no last-minute guilt trips, just signatures. When I walked out of the building, the air felt different, lighter, sharper, like I'd stepped into a life that actually fit. That night, I cooked dinner for one. Nothing fancy. I ate slowly. I slept deeply. And for the first time since the wedding that wasn't, I didn't dream of empty cameras or frozen shutters. I dreamed of open space, of movement, of choosing myself without apology. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They trickled in, quiet confirmations that the life I walked away from had been built on borrowed ground. The house sold faster than anyone expected, the market was hot, and the price climbed just enough to make my ex's parents brag about it like a win they'd earned. After reimbursements for the mortgage I'd paid while not living there, the remaining profit was split cleanly down the middle. No alimony, no claims on my business, no future access to my work. The judge had been clear. I kept 100% of my studio, my equipment, my client list, every piece of the thing I built with my own hands. My ex didn't take the ruling well. Without my income cushioning the edges of his life, reality set in fast. He couldn't afford the neighborhood he loved. The car, technically in my name, had to be sold. Lease transfer denied. He went from a luxury SUV to a 10-year-old Honda with peeling paint and a dashboard that rattled. I heard all of this secondhand. I didn't ask. He tried to rewrite the story anyway, telling people I'd financially abused him, that I'd been controlling, that I'd weaponized my career. But lies rot faster when receipts exist. Anyone who asked questions got answers. Screenshots, timelines, proof. Most people stopped asking. The silence around him grew. His sister's fallout was louder. Her marriage didn't survive the year. The groom, quiet, patient, overlooked, finally cracked. He filed for an annulment, citing financial deception and irreconcilable differences. Apparently, she'd hidden tens of thousands in credit card debt before the wedding. He moved out 3 months later. She moved back in with her parents. The golden child returned to the nest. She tried to pivot, posted tearful TikToks about wedding trauma, tried to brand herself as a cautionary influencer, talked about betrayal without ever naming what she'd done. The comments were brutal. "So you exploited family labor and it backfired? Imagine losing your husband over free photos. Pay your vendors." She deleted the account within weeks. Her parents, the architects of all of it, lost more quietly. The story traveled through their social circles faster than gossip ever had. At the country club, at charity events, at dinner parties where vendors were discussed like status symbols. They became those people, the ones who didn't pay. Invitations stopped coming, and for the first time, money couldn't buy their way back in. As for me, my business didn't just recover. It grew. High-end clients were drawn to the story, not the drama, but the boundary. The reputation of someone who wouldn't be pressured, someone who understood her worth and defended it without apology. I raised my rates. $6,000 became the new baseline. No one argued. I moved into a condo downtown, exposed brick, tall windows, light that shifted beautifully throughout the day. A photographer's dream. I bought furniture slowly, intentionally. Nothing borrowed. Nothing compromised. I started dating again, casually, carefully. On one date, a man asked what I did for work. When I told him, he nodded and asked to see my portfolio. He didn't ask for free photos. He offered to split dinner. I walked home that night smiling. Not because of romance, because of recognition. 6 months after the wedding, the divorce finalized without fanfare. The legal battle hadn't been a war. It had been a slow suffocation of entitlement. When the final email came through, I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet. No champagne, no celebration, just peace. I placed my camera on the table in front of me, batteries charged, memory cards formatted. Ready. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something I had to defend. It felt like something I owned. I'm sitting in my new living room now. Late afternoon light pours through the windows, catching on the exposed brick, turning the dust in the air into something almost beautiful. My camera rests on the table in front of me, batteries fully charged, memory cards formatted. Ready. Not because someone demanded it, not because I owed anyone anything, but because I chose to be. For a long time, I thought strength looked like compromise, like keeping the peace, like swallowing discomfort so no one else had to feel it, like telling myself it's family when my boundaries were being erased one favor at a time. I confused silence with maturity, compliance with love. What I learned, slowly, painfully, is that love doesn't ask you to disappear. Family isn't a magic word that grants unlimited access to your labor. Marriage isn't a contract that makes your work communal property. And loyalty that only flows in one direction isn't loyalty at all. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. If I regret not just taking the photos. If I regret the fallout. If I regret choosing myself so publicly. I don't. Because the most important thing I gained wasn't legal protection or professional respect. It was clarity. I learned that no is a complete sentence. That boundaries don't make you selfish, they make you honest. And that the most powerful photo I ever took was the one I didn't take at all. It captured something far more valuable than a wedding. It captured the moment I stopped letting other people decide my worth. I didn't destroy a family. I didn't ruin a marriage. I simply stepped out of a role that was never meant to be mine. And the view from here, it's quiet. It's earned. It's mine. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been told to shrink, to give, to stay silent for the sake of harmony, know this. Choosing yourself is not cruelty. It's survival. And sometimes walking away isn't the end of the story. It's the first clear frame of your real life.